Hello, it's Melissa, and I am here today with something a little bit different on this channel. Since we launched back in August, I've been conducting interviews with amazing real rad women, women who have reinvented their lives after divorce. And in those interviews, they typically offer tips, advice, resources to help you with your own reinvention. So today I'm going to do something differently. I'm going to give you some of my own advice that I know will be relevant to you because it's about money. It's about your approach to your finances as you are going through your reinvention. And my advice is what not to do. Today I'm going to share with you the top 5 mistakes that I made after my divorce that made significant impact on my finances. And they're mistakes that I want you to avoid at all costs. Okay? Are you ready? Here we go. Number 1 is kind of obvious, but it's a mistake that so many women make after a divorce. And that is not taking a look at the budget and not adjusting spending after the divorce happens. Once the bank accounts are separate and the second income is gone, I did not take a look at where my money was going. I just let the auto pay continue to be auto pay, or I would write the checks when the bills came in, and I just kept spending my normal rate. More to come on that in the next couple of items of mistakes I've made. But I didn't look at the kinds of adjustments that I really needed to be making now that my income was single. And you guys, I had a mortgage to pay. I had super high property taxes, and I wasn't thinking about how my solo income was suddenly going to be impacted by my ability to pay those big budget things in addition to the things that I was just paying for on a regular basis, the smaller things. Some of the things that I didn't need, like the newspaper subscription. Don't laugh. My ex-husband loved reading the paper. It would come twice a week. It would come on Sundays and it would come like on a random weekday. I don't even, like Wednesday or something. He looked forward to sitting there and reading the paper whenever it came. He'd be mad when it wasn't on in the driveway. So guess what? I could have cared less about the newspaper. I get my news online, I get my news out in the world, and the newspaper, sorry newspaper publishers, was not my thing. But I still had this newspaper subscription that just kept coming and coming and coming, and I would just toss the papers when they came. Another thing that I had was cable. I didn't watch cable. We had cable for all the sports that my ex-husband watched. And I didn't even stop to think about cutting the cord or adjusting my cable plan so that just what I needed or wanted for myself and my kids was there. I had the big major enchilada of every single channel. It was really expensive and I didn't need it and I didn't realize it because I wasn't looking at it. So my advice is to look at all of your expenses, everything in your budget, and really consider what you may not need or want anymore. And also just be aware of how your finances are now going to be impacted by having a single income. Mistake number 2 that I made was that I treated every opportunity that I was not a mom. Whenever my ex-husband had his parenting time with my children, I treated that time like a vacation. It was a party that sometimes I would plan for and sometimes I would spontaneously let happen. But I was pretty much never alone because as soon as my kids left the house, I was out the door. I was hanging out with my best friend and we were usually doing all kinds of fun, amazing things. We were out eating and drinking and shopping and traveling and doing all sorts of amazing things that, guess what, cost money. And because this newfound freedom that I was exercising was being done in excess, being done all the time, I never really stopped to observe the impact that this was making on my bank account. I went from being home all the time as a wife and as a mother and only going out occasionally. And when I was spending money, I was shopping, more on that later. Now I was going out and I was being social and I'm out late at night and I'm not paying any attention. This was like my FU freedom experience. But the only person who I was really effing was myself because I was just spending money completely without paying any attention to it and not really taking the time to reset and reassess my life. I wasn't taking those quiet moments to really reflect and think about where I wanted my life to go. I was just living it up. And I know that that's something that so many of us do after a divorce. And you know what? A release is good. It's important. You've been feeling probably caged up and you need to exercise your freedom. And that's okay. And you also need to get in touch with yourself. And that's what I wasn't doing during that time. I really was just almost escaping myself by going out, by spending money, and just go, instead of really looking at the work I needed to do, both on my own awareness of what I wanted to be doing and my own awareness of my household budget and the adjustments that I needed to make with that. It's really easy to just go and turn a blind eye and eventually deal with things when they come up. Preparation is very important. More on that later as well. So let's move on to number 3 mistake that I made, because the third mistake I made and even the fourth both feed into my mistake number 2 of basically living like the Rolling Stones whenever my kids weren't around. So mistake number 3 is that I took my newly found freedom as my opportunity to break out, break free, and travel without abandon. I was looking for excuses to, like I said, get out of my house and do things when I didn't have my kids. So I would go beyond just my community, my, general neighborhood. I was out of Michigan as much as I could possibly be. In Florida, in Puerto Rico, in the Cayman Islands, in Las Vegas, in California. I got to travel for work sometimes, and I would parlay those work trips into other trips that I would add on at the end. So I was using work as an excuse to help me travel, or I would just go ahead and plan trips for no reason. One day, my friend and I were out at dinner. We were having cocktails and dinner, and probably on our third martini, I got the idea that we should find a fun concert to go to in Las Vegas some weekend. It was starting to get cold in Michigan, and I wanted to be warm. So we found a random concert to go to in a couple of weeks' time in Vegas, bought tickets, booked the hotel, booked the flight, sitting at the bar as we ate our dinner and drank our martinis. Sounds really fun and glamorous, right? It's also really stupid because I wasn't planning, I wasn't thinking about it. It was a completely frivolous spend. Yes, we had tons of fun, but it wasn't necessary. And it was just one example of something that I was doing all the time. So, mistake number 3 with the excessive travel that I was doing was a huge mistake that I was making. Again, it kind of tied into my escape from really looking at and dealing with the reality that was around me. And because I did have a good job where I saw money coming in the house all the time, I didn't really think that I needed to look at the big picture. So I know right now, as I'm recording this video, we're still in some really weird places as it relates to travel. There are some really strong restrictions in places, other places are open, but people aren't comfortable due to COVID-19. So travel may or may not be something that is an issue for you, but you can take the lesson and what I learned from my completely flagrant disregard for my budget with my travel, and you can use that. And if it doesn't make sense, then let's consider number 4 mistake that I made, which was my crazy excessive spending. So I mentioned that I didn't look at making budget adjustments, and I didn't really change or alter my lifestyle at all. That was number one. And when I talk about the rock star lifestyle in mistake number two, and the always wanting to go out and do things and enjoy my freedom spending, number three, with the travel. Now let's look at number four with just the spending. I would spend like crazy when I was traveling because I would think when I'm traveling, this is an excuse to spend money. Sometimes I would plan trips just to shop. I went to Beverly Hills, California, and I purchased this lovely sweater. Now you may notice that this lovely sweater, it's cashmere, mind you, but this sweater is full of holes. And I thought that it was just this really cheeky, fun style element. In fact, I thought it was kind of punk and badass. So I was completely attracted to this sweater. I mean, we buy things that make you happy sometimes, but the example of this sweater is that I was doing that kind of thing all the time. When I was at home, I would go shopping. I would shop online. I would shop when I was traveling and I would justify every purchase. Like this one. This is something that I justified on a trip to the trip to Las Vegas actually that I planned for the concert also became a crazy shopping trip. And this ring, my friend really did not have to convince me very hard that I needed to have this ring. This ring was purchased at the Cartier store in Las Vegas. And I decided that it represented my three boys and I because of the three bands. And it became very meaningful, and of course I had to have it, even though this ring was 2 mortgage payments. I didn't think about it that way until the next morning when I woke up and I looked at the ring that was on my hand that suddenly felt like it was a little bit of a handcuff on my hand, because I realized with the sinking feeling as I looked at it that I had made a really stupid mistake. That I had no business spending this kind of money on something that I didn't need when I was living under this single income where I had my kids to think about, I had my mortgage to think about, and 2 of them right here are in this ring. So I panicked and I actually wanted to return the ring, and I researched it because I didn't want to be like embarrassed and go to the Cartier store and tail between legs saying, sorry, I made a mistake. And I realized that actually I couldn't return it. Purchase was final. So I had to live with the fact that I was stuck with this ring. I decided to use it, first of all, to really take the justification that I used to purchase it. Yes, this is a memory. This is a representation of my boys and I being together. And I also took that as a very big learning moment where really at the time that I bought this ring was when I started to really pay attention that my spending needed to calm down because I had bigger responsibilities. I had things that I had been trying to ignore and escape through my gregarious spending habits that I needed to take a look at. So friends, I know it is really easy to go out all the time if you are able to go out. And especially, it's really easy to spend money. Amazon one click is like a blessing and a curse, right? It is so easy to shop when things just show up magically at your door by just clicking a button. And it's easy to not think about the financial implications with that. So there's another element to this. Things that in number 1 through 4, I had not been considering in these mistakes I was making. And that was the fact that I was escaping myself. I didn't want to deal with these changes in my life. So I just ignored them. And I want you to understand how once I decided that I needed to really look at what I wanted and where I was going, and really how I needed to look at how I was spending money and how I was managing my money, then I was able to feel holistically better. I didn't have that sinking feeling in my stomach after making a purchase. I didn't have that fear when the phone would ring that someone was calling me because I had an overdue credit card bill that I didn't remember or something like that. Those were all important things that I was able to free myself from once I got myself in check and I came to terms with both the inner reasons that I was doing all of this that affected the outer world that I was living in. And that brings me to mistake number 5 that I made. And mistake number 5 is extremely relevant because it ties into how I was running away and trying to escape all of this. It is probably the biggest mistake I made, so I saved it for the end. And that is, I fired my financial advisor without a plan and without any intention of getting a new one. I was tired of being told what to do, and it just so happened that my financial advisor was a fraternity brother of my ex-husband. So even though he was a super nice, super professional man, I did not want that connection and that tie with my ex-husband, even though it was only mental. I was only imagining it. But I did not want that tie. And I did not, more importantly, want anyone telling me what to do. I wanted to just go about my life and have my fun. Well, you can go about your life and have your fun and also have smart, experienced guidance. And that's what I was missing in that time that I let go and did not make that plan for myself. So if there is one bit of advice from all of the mistakes that I just listed out for you, my true confessional, please make sure that you have a plan. And don't be afraid to have someone advise you and guide you the right way. Because that's how we find ourselves, by ignoring the advice, not taking advice, not wanting advice. That's how we get ourselves in trouble. Because sometimes we can't see the things that are right in front of us that are really simply addressed. And by addressing them and acknowledging these things, we can move forward so much more freely, so much more quickly than digging ourselves in deep holes. I dug myself in a little bit of a hole by the way that I was approaching my finances after my divorce. And I don't want you to make those mistakes either. So let's do a quick recap, and then let me share a few tips to help you avoid making the same mistakes I made. First of all, recapping my top 5 financial mistakes. Number 1, ignoring the reality of the shift in household income and not making any adjustments. Number 2, treating every bit of alone time that I had, and for me, that was when I didn't have my kids, as a total free-for-all. Number 3, jet-setting and traveling the world with reckless abandon. Number 4, shopping and spending my money, as my mother would say, like a drunken sailor. And my number 5 top money mistake that I made after my divorce was firing my financial advisor without replacing him and without a plan. So now let's get into some tips to help you avoid making some mistakes, because I think these tips can be really helpful and applicable even if your situation isn't exactly like mine. So here we go. First of all, don't pretend it's just business as usual after you separate your bank accounts. Hiding your head in the sand will not serve your purpose and not send you in a positive direction. Also, take a look at your budget to understand the reality of your expenses and your spending. What are you really spending your money on? You might realize that you're spending money on a lot of things you don't need, you don't want, and that you don't even realize are coming out of your pocket. You'll be surprised at how accepting reality right now will empower you so that you can make decisions that will have a really positive impact on your finances moving forward. Also, be honest and upfront with yourself about your current circumstances. You may recognize that you may need to tighten your belt, so it's probably not the best idea to go on a shopping spree every other day. You've got to get honest, and getting honest will make great progress for you in the long run. So, spreading your wings and celebrating your freedom is encouraged. It's great. You deserve it. But partying like it's 1999 will not lead you to financial security. Don't use every opportunity you have as an excuse to spend money. Also, really look at that alone time that you have and use the alone time to really look within and ask yourself some critical questions so that you can get to the root of the matter at hand and understand how you can get on a more stable course. An easy way to do this is just to start by asking yourself 3 questions. First of all, ask, why am I motivated to turn my free time into a constant celebration and an escape? What's driving me to do this? Keep asking yourself until maybe you can get to the actual root of why you're doing what you're doing. Also, ask, what am I trying to avoid through my behavior and through my spending? Are you trying to run away or escape something that's there that you just don't want to deal with? And the third question that is so helpful in getting to the root of some of your financial habits after divorce is to ask yourself, whose attention am I seeking? And what message am I trying to send them? Your out loud behavior is definitely a public message, and you need to really look at who that message is for and what you're trying to say. So moving on to a couple more tips. Find a trusted supporter, an advisor, someone who you're comfortable being totally honest with about your financial situation. It's your guardian angel, but you've got to be honest and you've got to accept the guidance that's offered from that trusted advisor. If you're not inclined to accept that guidance and that advice, you need to look more closely at your resistance. Is it you or is it them? Because this is a really tricky one. Sometimes we could be stopping ourselves from allowing that help, but sometimes it's just not a good match. And sometimes it actually is the other person. And if the relationship with your advisor is not serving you and helping you get on that stable, solid path, find a new one, change it up, and find someone that is more aligned with where you're going. Remember, support and the accountability that leads to the actions that you'll take are key to making progress in your reinvention. And here's just a couple bonus things that I want you to really keep in mind after all of this. I really hope this doesn't sound preachy and do this, don't do that, because I really, truly want you to take these tips, take this advice from my mistakes and my experiences. And just know that no matter where you are right now in your experience, it's okay. Even if you feel like things are totally not okay, you're going to be okay. It's okay. We can get through this. Forgive yourself. Try not to look at your situation and have regret. Try not to harbor any resentment. Go easy on yourself. Give yourself some love, because that forgiveness is where you will be able to move on. That is my share with you today. And for more about how you can get on track, both to get in track with the inner and outer understanding of your finances and just get yourself and your life on track after divorce, check out more at radnewlife.com. That's where you can find me. And until next time, see you, make good choices, and stay rad. Did today's video resonate with you? Do you have your own true confession of a mistake that you've made with finances or money since you've been divorced? Well, then come on and share. It's your turn. Sharing your mistakes, facing them, is how you learn, let go, and move on. So send your confessions to me at melissa@nowheretour.com with the subject line confession. If I have your permission, I'll share your confession in my next video. Are you in the process of your own reinvention? Visit radnewlife.com to find out more about the resources and support you can receive to help amplify your progress. Find out where you are in your process and exactly what you need to do next to take the steps to move forward, and connect with a community that understands your experience and supports you. Again, visit radnewlife.com. And don't forget to tell your friends about this channel, and don't forget to subscribe.